Hey there, Drowsy Historian here. Tonight you're a cowboy, which mostly means you're a tired young man, earning barely enough to keep your boots from falling apart, breathing dust until your lungs rattle, and coughing into a rag that turns redder by the week. Before we drag you through this fine American experience, the cattle dust, the bloodied handkerchiefs, the noble art of dying young and unremembered, do me one small favour. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. If you'd prefer these stories without ads, you can join the Patreon. It's linked in the description. And if you want the ultimate immersive experience, consider using a pair of wireless earbuds. They're comfortable, discreet, and designed so you can wear them even while sleeping. I've linked my favourite pair plus other sleep tools in the description. Now, lie back, get comfortable, let's begin. You leave behind a worn childhood that has never really been free of work. Whether it was the factory's grinding wheels, the tobacco fields, or the grey streets of a cramped city, your lungs have already been filled with enough dust and soot to betray you. You've been told by some well-meaning voice that the West will save you. Out there the air is clean, the land is wide, and men are free to live with no master but themselves. Of course, the people who say such things have usually never been west of the river, but hope travels faster than trains. You feel the faint cough that has been rattling at your chest for months, and you imagine it vanishing like fog in the prairie wind. All you need, you tell yourself, is a little more space, a little more sun, and the open sky. So you scrape together the cost of passage and begin the journey. The train car is overcrowded, lined with bodies jammed shoulder to shoulder, a mix of farmhands, immigrants, and restless young men chasing the same mirage. The seats are wooden, the windows barely open, and the air grows thick with sweat and smoke until your throat burns. Every time the wheels clatter over the rails, you feel the vibration in your bones, and every cough, your own or someone else's, hangs in the stale compartment like a curse no one wants to name. The children cry, the mothers hush them, and the men try to look tougher than they feel, as the land stretches ever farther into a horizon that seems determined not to end. At night you sleep upright, cheek pressed against splintered wood, waking with a stiff neck and a mouthful of dryness that no water can soothe. The days blur into a monotonous rhythm. Out the window, you watch towns shrink into little more than a saloon and a water tower before the prairie swallows them whole. The land becomes emptier, the sky broader, and the promise of space grows both enticing and terrifying. You tell yourself this is what freedom looks like, though the smell of unwashed bodies and the ache in your back suggest otherwise. Dust blows in through cracks in the walls, settling over everything, including your lungs. Each time you cough into your sleeve, you imagine it is only the dust, nothing more. It must be the dust. The alternative is too inconvenient for a young man who believes he is heading toward life, not away from it. At one stop, the train empties into a crowded platform where wagons wait to take men further along. You jostle with others for a place, your meagre bundle of possessions clutched to your chest. The wagon ride is worse than the train. There are no benches, just rough boards and jolting wheels that rattle your bones. Horses snort clouds of steam into the morning air, and the men around you cough openly, spitting onto the dirt road with no shame. The wheels creak, the harnesses groan, and your body shudders with every rut and rock. You try to think of it as part of the adventure, the hardship that will make the rewards sweeter, but your throat betrays you again, tearing with another cough that leaves you dizzy. You glance at the red-stained rag tucked in your bundle and try not to think about it. The road stretches on, mile after mile of brown grass and scattered scrub. The horizon feels impossibly far away, and the silence between wagon jolts is filled only by the wind. You can smell the earth in a way you never did back east, a dry, bitter scent that mixes with horse sweat and leather. The men around you speak of ranches hiring, of cattle drives, and long wages, of legends they've half heard about fortune and glory. You say little, conserving your strength, nodding as if you share the same confidence. In truth, your chest burns with every breath, and you already feel the fatigue of work that hasn't yet begun. But you cling to the stories. They are the only thing lighter than the dust settling on your tongue. Nights on the trail westward offer no real rest. You huddle under a canvas flap or beside a fire, using your coat as a blanket. The stars stretch endlessly above, beautiful in their coldness, but they remind you more of distance than of wonder. Coyotes cry in the distance, their voices thin and mocking. Around you, men snore, spit, or whisper about what lies ahead. Someone strums a broken guitar with missing strings, a tune that barely holds together but sounds enough like home to sting. You lie awake, staring into the fire's embers, coughing quietly so as not to draw attention, and imagine yourself arriving at the promised land. Strong, healthy, a real cowboy astride a horse. The fantasy lingers just long enough to let you sleep, though your chest heaves even in dreams. The days turn into weeks, the trail into monotony. You notice how thin your arms look when you roll up your sleeves to wipe sweat. You notice the way your hands shake when you lift a cup of water, and how each mile feels heavier than the last. Yet the others around you are no picture of health either. Men limp, curse, and spit blood without ceremony. Some vanish at small towns, too sick or too broke to continue. The West does not look like salvation. It looks like attrition, thinning the herd long before a rancher has ever seen them. Still, you press on. Pride, stubbornness, and the sheer absence of alternatives push you forward more than hope ever did. At last, after the endless sameness of prairie and sky, the wagon rolls toward the low buildings of a ranch. There is no grandeur here, no painted welcome sign, or cheering crowd. Just the flat sprawl of fences, a corral of restless horses, and the sour smell of manure hanging heavy in the air. A foreman waits, his face cut by wind and suspicion. He surveys the newcomers with the practiced eye of a man who has seen too many arrive soft and eager, only to collapse before the season is out. His gaze lingers on you, thin, hollow-eyed, coughing into your fist, and you see the doubt flicker. But men are needed, cattle do not herd themselves, and desperation fills the gaps where strength should be. He waves you on with a grunt, as if taking inventory of a tool already half broken. You climb down from the wagon, legs stiff and lungs rattling, and breathe in the dust and sweat of the place that is meant to save you. The prairie stretches endless behind. The ranch stretches hard ahead, and your chest feels heavy in both directions. The stories you carried have already thinned like smoke, but the work will not wait for your illusions to catch up. You are here now, in the kingdom of dust and cattle, and whether your lungs can keep pace no longer matters. The foreman's grunt of acceptance is the closest thing to welcome you'll get. No handshake, no words of encouragement, just a nod that says you're now another back to break beneath the sun. You follow his gesture across the yard, boots sinking into dirt that smells of dung and dust, past cattle lowing in pens and horses shifting uneasily in their stalls. The ranch is no grand homestead. It's a scatter of buildings, weathered grey, fences leaning, and ground trampled hard by hooves. Still, you tell yourself it will do. You wanted the cowboy's life, and here it is, waiting with manure underfoot and dust already on your tongue. That night, you sleep poorly on a thin bunk, the cough in your chest rattling against the snores and mutters of strangers. The sun has not yet risen when the day begins. You wake to the rattle of a tin bell, a sound that will come to haunt you in dreams, marking the division between brief, uncomfortable sleep and endless, uncomfortable labour. The cold air of dawn cuts into your lungs, sharpening the cough you try to stifle with your fist as you pull on stiff boots. The horses are already restless in the corral, stamping hooves in the dirt, the smell of hay and manure thick enough to choke you. You swing a saddle onto the first horse, arms straining as though lifting stone, and feel the weight press against your back like another burden added to the growing list. Fence posts must be mended, troughs filled, and branding irons heated until they glow like fragments of hell. The ranch demands everything from you before you have even had a chance to remember why you came. You learn quickly that there is no rhythm beyond exhaustion. Each task flows into the next until your body is less a man and more a tool swung again and again at whatever chore presents itself. The fences stretch farther than your eye can follow, and every time you think you've reached the end, there's another stretch of wire sagging loose, or another post broken by wind and cattle. Horses bite, cattle kick, and leather tears, all without apology. There is no question of rest. The animals are alive and insistent, the work constant, and the foreman merciless. He barks orders like a man swatting flies, seeing you not as someone newly arrived with a body still aching from travel, but as another back to lean on until it breaks. Your hands, once calloused, split further, bleeding against rope and wood until you learn to ignore the sting. The dust is your constant companion. It clings to your skin, fills your nose, settles in your eyes until the world looks blurred and raw. Every breath pulls grit deeper into your chest, scratching at your throat, aggravating the cough that has already begun to feel more familiar than your own voice. When you spit into the dirt, you tell yourself it is just the dust, just the endless churn of cattle and earth. You repeat it until it almost sounds convincing. By midday, your shirt is soaked through, sticking to your back, and every muscle from your shoulders to your thighs trembles from strain. The sun is merciless, hanging above you as though to prove there is no escape from its gaze. Cowboys are supposed to ride free beneath this sky, but you mostly find yourself bent double under it, shoving fence posts into unwilling earth. Meals offer little relief. At the cook's fire, you line up for beans, bread hard enough to chip a tooth, and coffee boiled until it tastes of iron. It fills the stomach without kindness, fuel poured into a body that has no choice but to keep moving. You sit in the dirt, bowl in hand, watching other men eat with the same dull hunger. Their faces grey beneath the sun. Talk is minimal. Men save their breath for work, or their complaints for muttered curses the foreman pretends not to hear. When laughter does break out, it is brittle, carried more by habit than by joy. You do not imagine yourself as part of a cheerful brotherhood, as the dime novels like to paint. You are one more tired figure among many, bound together less by camaraderie than by shared servitude. The pay, you're told, comes monthly, handed out in envelopes that shrink quickly at the saloon or vanish into the pocket of a storekeeper for supplies. You have done the arithmetic in your head, and it is dismal. A month's wages might cover a pair of boots, a new shirt, and perhaps a bed in town for a night, but little more. The dream of freedom, of keeping money in your pocket, of choosing your own course, grows fainter each time you calculate and realise you're working simply to stay alive another month. The cattle belong to someone else, the land to someone else, the decisions to someone else. You, the cowboy, are not a master of the frontier, but another servant in dust-stained clothes. By late afternoon, your body moves on instinct alone. You drive cattle from one pasture to another. They're lowing a background drone that merges with the creak of saddles and the bark of dogs. The air is alive with flies drawn to sweat and manure, and you swat them until your arms ache. The cough worsens as the day wears on, rattling through your chest until men glance at you sidelong. They do not comment yet, but you know how cowboys look at weakness, not with sympathy but with calculation, as though measuring how long before you fall behind. You feel it in the way they ride a little faster, leave you to close the gate, let you cough into your rag without offering a word. You are still one of them for now, but the thread feels thin. When the branding begins, the ranch seems to turn into a furnace. Calves are dragged down, pinned against the ground, and the irons hiss against flesh with a smell that clings to your nostrils long after you ride away. The animals bawl, men shout, and smoke curls upward in a haze that leaves your lungs raw. You press your sleeve against your mouth, trying not to cough into the haze, but it is futile. The sound tears through you anyway, echoing against the yells and the cries, another small voice of protest lost in the chaos. Your arms shake as you hold the ropes, and when the car finally stumbles free, you feel as though your own body has been branded, marked, weakened, pushed further toward collapse. By sundown, the horizon is painted with the colours of fire and ash. The sky looks wide and magnificent, the kind of view artists and storytellers would write into legend, but you're too tired to admire it. Your shoulders droop, your legs barely carry you, and your lungs ache with every breath. The cough that started faint has become a steady drum beat in your chest, leaving your ribs sore from the constant heaving. Sweat dries to salt on your skin, leaving you sticky and raw. The myth of the cowboy, free beneath the endless sky, master of horse and land, seems laughable now. Something invented by men who have never been asked to haul a fence post across rocky soil or swallow dust until blood tinges their spit. You drag yourself across the yard, each step an effort, until the low outline of the bunkhouse comes into view. You push open the warped wooden door and step into the place where you are meant to rest after the endless churn of work. The bunkhouse is nothing like the wide, romantic visions of cowboy life that fill dime novels. There are no clean quarters, no quiet rows of neat beds, no air of rugged nobility. Instead, you're greeted by a heavy stench that clings to your nostrils and seems to press into your skin the moment you enter. The air is thick with tobacco smoke curling from pipes and cheap cigars, layered over the odour of unwashed wool blankets, damp leather, and the sour tang of men's sweat ground into every surface. Cots are arranged haphazardly along the walls, their thin mattresses already darkened with stains, their blankets crawling with things you cannot see but soon will feel. Men lounge on the bunks or slump against the walls, boots off, socks stiff with dirt. Some are playing cards by lamplight, the flicker casting deep shadows over faces drawn from long days in the sun. Others are bent over, coughing into their hands or into rags as casually as if they were spitting tobacco. The coughs echo through the room, a steady rhythm that becomes the bunkhouse's unofficial chorus. You hesitate in the doorway, caught between the cool evening air outside and the suffocating press within, but you know there is nowhere else to go. This is where cowboys sleep, and you're now a cowboy, or something close enough to pass. You pick a cot against the far wall, drop your bundle onto it, and lower yourself onto the sagging frame. The springs groan, the mattress tilts, and you wonder how many bodies have slept and sweated here before you. The room grows louder as the night goes on. More men pile in from the yard, their boots dragging, spurs clinking faintly as they collapse onto whatever beds remain. The air grows denser with smoke and the sour tang of wet wool drying by the stove. The stove itself glows faintly, a dull red eye in the corner, hissing with every log tossed inside. Someone spits into the ashes, and you hear it sizzle before the faint sound of coughing drowns it out. A man mutters a curse as lice crawl down his shirt collar, and he scratches until his nails leave thin red marks. Another rolls over and groans in his sleep, pulling the blanket tighter against himself, though you doubt it keeps out much of the cold or the vermin. You feel a tickle along your own wrist and slap at it, killing nothing, only becoming aware of how alive the bunkhouse is beneath its grim silence. Sleep here is not a matter of closing your eyes, but of surrendering to exhaustion. The noise of the place makes it impossible otherwise. Some men snore as though trying to outdo the others, each breath rattling like a saw against timber. A few mutter nonsense words in their sleep, names or curses spoken into the smoke. The coughs never stop. They punctuate the night at irregular intervals, dry hacks or wet rattles, sometimes ending with a glob of spit landing on the floorboards. You roll onto your side and press your sleeve against your mouth, trying not to join them, but the itch in your throat rises anyway. You cough into your fist until your ribs ache, eyes watering from the effort, then fold your rag over your mouth to muffle the sound. When you look at it afterward, faint flecks of red glisten in the lamplight before you shove it deep into your bundle, out of sight. No one asks if you're well, and you do not expect them to. At the card table, one man laughs too loud at a weak hand, his voice breaking into a wheeze halfway through. Another shakes his head and mutters about bad luck, scratching at his hair until flakes of dandruff fall onto the cards. A fight nearly breaks out over a pot of pennies, but it dissolves into tired laughter, both men too weary to carry anger past a few heated words. You lie back on the cot, staring at the beams overhead, where cobwebs sway with each draught. The lantern sputters, shadows stretch, and you notice the faint sound of rats scurrying along the rafters. The bunkhouse is not only home to cowboys, but to every other form of pest the prairie offers. It feels less like shelter and more like a box where bodies are stored between shifts, left to rot quietly until the morning bell calls them out again. Your body itches everywhere the blanket touches, lice crawl in seams, fleas hop from bed to bed, and you scratch until your skin feels raw. Around you, men shift and slap at themselves in the same rhythm, a silent acknowledgement that comfort is not something cowboys are afforded. You hear the faint sound of chewing and realise someone is grinding lice between their teeth, an old superstition that it will cure the infestation. The thought makes you gag and you cough again, drawing stares that linger just long enough to sting. The room grows hotter despite the night chill outside, the press of bodies and smoke, turning it into a furnace of breath and odour. You pull the blanket over your shoulders anyway, shivering as sweat runs down your back, your lungs rattling in protest. In the corner, near the stove, a man leans forward and spits again. This time, it is not tobacco, but blood, a dark clot that hisses against the coals. No one comments, no one even looks. The cough has been with them all so long that it feels natural, another part of life on the ranch, as ordinary as the dust in the air. Men do not speak of sickness here, because to admit it is to mark yourself as weak, and weakness has no place among men who must ride, rope, and endure without complaint. So the blood is ignored, the coughs tolerated, the sick left to fend for themselves in silence. You understand the rule without needing it explained. Already you hide your own rag deeper in your belongings. Already you resolve to cough more quietly. Already you know that what gnaws at your lungs must remain your private burden. The night drags on, minutes stretching into hours. You try closing your eyes, but the air is too thick to breathe easily. Every inhalation filled with the sour stink of sweat and tobacco. You toss, scratch, cough, and press your fist to your mouth until your chest aches with the effort of silence. Outside, the wind rattles the shutters, a faint reminder that there is a world beyond this wooden box. Though you cannot feel its freshness here, all you have is the stale air of the bunkhouse, recycled through dozens of tired lungs, heavy enough to make the idea of fresh air seem like a cruel joke. Lying on your cot, you listen to the chorus of snoring and coughing, your own rag damp with saliva and blood clutched in your fist. You think back to the stories that sent you westward, the claims that the air here was clean and the land vast enough to heal whatever ailed you. Perhaps there was once a kernel of truth in them, or perhaps they were always lies designed to lure men like you into filling the gaps in someone else's labour force Whatever the case, the reality is this: a smoky, infested room where the sound of sickness is as steady as the crackle of the stove. You cough again, ribs burning, eyes blurred with tears, and wonder how many more nights you will endure like this before your body breaks for good. This is the cure you were promised, an endless night in a room of coughing strangers where hope dries to ash as quickly as spit hisses on the coals. The days blur into one another, each beginning in darkness, each ending in exhaustion. You rise before dawn, saddle a horse in the cold, and ride out to mend fences, drive cattle, or drag posts into place. The rhythm of the ranch becomes second nature, though never easier. But the cough that once lingered quietly in the background has grown louder, sharper, more insistent. Each morning it claws at your chest as you climb into the saddle, rattling against your ribs until your throat burns. You try to swallow it down, to convince yourself that it is nothing, only the dust that rises in choking clouds wherever cattle stampede and men ride. Yet every spasm leaves you weaker, every breath shorter, and the lie becomes harder to believe. By midday, under the glare of the sun, the cough tears at you so violently that you must stop to bend double, clutching at the saddle horn until your vision clears. The dust is endless here, lifted by every hoof and stirred by every gust of wind, and it settles into your mouth, your hair, your lungs. You taste it with every swallow, grit grinding against your teeth, and you tell yourself again that it is only dust. That is what the others say as well, when they notice you coughing harder than the rest. This country gets into your lungs, one of them remarks with a shrug, as if that were comfort enough. Another spits a stream of brown tobacco juice into the dirt and adds, "You'll hack it out soon enough." Their indifference feels like agreement, and you nod as if reassured, though your chest still aches. You begin carrying a rag more often, keeping it tucked into your belt or pocket. At first it is for the dust, to cover your mouth when the cattle kick up a storm, but soon it becomes something more. When you press it to your lips after a fit of coughing, you see faint flecks of red blooming against the cloth. The first time it happens, you stare at it too long, frozen with the knowledge of what it means. Then you fold the rag quickly, shove it back into your pocket, and tell yourself it was nothing. A split lip, perhaps, or some strain of the throat from coughing too hard. Anything but what it is. You do not speak of it to the others. You know already what their silence would mean if they saw. The work continues relentless. You ride through fields where the sun scorches your neck until it blisters, where the dust is so thick it turns the horizon into a brown haze. Your body weakens, even as your tasks remain the same. The fence posts are still heavy, the cattle still stubborn, the saddle still weighing on your aching shoulders. At night, when the bunkhouse swallows you again, your cough joins the chorus of others, indistinguishable from theirs, though you feel its edge cutting deeper than theirs ever could. Men cough in their sleep, cough while chewing beans, cough into the fire, and no one says a word. To cough is ordinary, to spit blood is not. You hold that secret tighter than any coin you might save, keeping your rag folded in your fist while your chest heaves through the night. Some mornings, the taste of iron lingers on your tongue before you have even mounted your horse. You try rinsing your mouth with bitter coffee, but the metallic tang remains. It reminds you of biting your lip as a child, of the time you cut your gum on a broken tooth. But now it comes without accident, summoned instead by every violent spasm in your chest. Once, while working alongside another hand, you turn away mid-sentence to cough into your rag, and when you pull it back, your palm is already stained. The man notices, frowns, then shrugs and mutters, "Dust'll do that to a man." He rides on, and you breathe a little easier knowing he did not press the matter. If he suspected more, he chose not to say. Indifference is its own kind of mercy. The days stretch on with the same rhythm, only harder now. Your arms tire quicker, your legs feel heavier, and your breath comes shallow. You notice how your shirt hangs looser at the waist, how your belt must be pulled tighter. The food fills your stomach but does little to restore you. Every spoonful of beans feels like fuel poured into a machine, already breaking down. You avoid mirrors, though the troughs of water sometimes reflect enough to remind you that your cheeks have grown hollow, your skin sallow beneath the tan. When you catch your reflection in the surface, you hardly recognize the man staring back. He looks older than his years, though you're not yet 25. Consumption ages men faster than the prairie sun ever could. There's no pause in the work to acknowledge what you feel. The foreman barks orders as if nothing has changed, as though your slowing pace and heaving breaths are invisible. In a way they are. Out here, illness is simply another fact of life, no more unusual than a broken fence or a lame horse. Men ride themselves to pieces every day. Your lungs are just another part of that pattern. To admit weakness, to confess that your cough is more than dust, would be to mark yourself unfit. And men who cannot work are men who cannot stay. You keep the secret hidden in your rag, folded away with every blotch of red, and you carry on as though nothing is wrong. The others pretend to believe it, and you pretend to believe them. One evening, after a day spent driving cattle across parched land, you find yourself trembling in the saddle, vision blurred with exhaustion. The herd moves slowly, dust hanging in the air like smoke from a fire, and each breath feels like pulling knives into your chest. By the time the sun lowers behind the hills, your body is so spent that you nearly slide from your horse when you dismount. You walk stiffly toward the water trough, kneel and cough again, hard enough that the rag in your hand grows heavy with wetness. You unfold it in the fading light, and the sight is unmistakable. The cloth is stained not with flecks, but with broad smears of red, blooming like crushed berries across the fabric. For a long moment you stare at it, the world narrowing to nothing but the rag in your hand and the dull roar in your ears. It is no longer dust. No amount of denial can disguise it now. You fold the cloth carefully, press it back into your pocket, and rise to your feet with the last of your strength. The prairie stretches wide and empty around you, but in that moment, you feel more trapped than ever before. The very next week, the foreman calls for hands to ride out on a cattle drive. The herd must be pushed north, across miles of prairie, to rail lines where buyers wait. There is no question of who goes and who stays. Every man is needed, and you are given no choice but to climb back into the saddle. Your body is already shaking from fever, your lungs still roar, but you say nothing. To protest would be to invite dismissal, or worse, pity, and neither is something you can afford. So you cinch the saddle tight, mount up, and pretend that the weight pressing down on your chest is nothing more than fatigue. The drive begins at dawn, the herd restless and loud, hooves pounding the earth until the ground itself seems to quake. Dust rises immediately, a choking storm that hangs in the air and turns the sun into a dim red disk overhead. You ride alongside the others, guiding the cattle with shouts and sharp whistles, but each breath feels like pulling sandpaper through your throat. The dust coats your teeth until they feel gritty, dries your lips until they split, and sinks deep into your lungs where it mixes with the blood already waiting there. The cough tears through you, shaking your whole body in the saddle, but you press a hand against your mouth and hope the noise is lost in the thunder of hooves. The hours stretch endlessly. You ride until your thighs burn, until your shoulders ache from holding the reins, until your head throbs from the sun beating against your hat. Water is rationed, handed out sparingly from skins that grow lighter each day. You drink quickly, desperate to soothe the rasp in your throat, but the relief lasts only moments before the dust dries you again. Each swallow tastes of leather and metal, and the more you drink, the more your stomach churns. The others ride with the same grim focus, faces hidden behind bandanas, their eyes bloodshot from wind and grit. You tell yourself that you look no worse than they do, though the rattling in your chest suggests otherwise. Nights bring little reprieve. When the herd finally settles, men collapse around the campfire, their bodies bent and hollow from the day's labour. The cook ladles beans into tin plates, the same bitter meal night after night, and you force each spoonful down, though your stomach rebels. The fire's smoke curls into your lungs and provokes fresh coughing, each fit leaving you doubled over, your plate forgotten in the dirt. A man sitting beside you eyes the rag in your hand, but says nothing. He has his own cough after all, and silence is easier than sympathy. You lie on your bedroll with the stars stretched wide above, coughing into the darkness until sleep drags you down. When morning comes, your body is heavier than the night before, yet you rise again because you must. The days blur into sameness, sunrise, dust, cattle, and endless miles of prairie. The herd moves slowly, driven by shouts and whips, their hooves grinding the earth into powder. You ride in circles around them, lungs raw, eyes stinging, mouth so dry it feels like it might crack open. Every time you bend double in the saddle to cough, the world swims, and you grip the horn to keep from falling. You think of water more than food, dream of it when you doze in the saddle and curse when the skins come back nearly empty. The prairie offers little in the way of streams, and what water there is tastes foul, stagnant, filled with grit. Still, you drink it, because thirst is stronger than disgust. At times, the dust grows so thick that the herd vanishes in a brown haze, leaving you riding blind. The cattle press together, their bulls rising in panic, and you and the others shout yourselves hoarse, trying to keep them from breaking. Your voice cracks, your throat bleeds, and the cough rips through you again, louder than ever. The horse beneath you snorts and tosses its head, irritated by your weakness, but you cling to the saddle and force yourself upright. The trail does not care if you're sick, nor does the herd. They will move regardless, trampling whatever lies in their path, and if you fall, the cattle will not notice until your body is buried in dust. Each evening, when the herd is finally contained, you feel as though you have been beaten. Your body trembles when you dismount, knees buckling beneath you. The fever has become constant, an unwelcome companion that leaves your skin clammy even as the night air cools. Sweat soaks your shirt, chills you to the bone, and makes the shivers worse. You cough until your stomach aches, until your vision blurs, until you taste nothing but iron on your tongue. Sometimes the rag comes away so red that you fold it quickly, hiding it beneath your bedroll before anyone can see. Sometimes you're too tired to hide it at all, and you drop it into the dirt, staring at it with dull resignation before shoving it away. The other cowboys notice, though they say little. They ride a few paces farther from you, sit on the opposite side of the fire, and avoid sharing utensils. A few mutter that you should have stayed back at the ranch, though none volunteer to take your place. Everyone knows the trail demands bodies, and a sick one is better than none at all. They look at you with a mix of suspicion and calculation, as if measuring how long before you collapse entirely. You pretend not to notice, but the space they give you grows wider each night. Their silence cuts deeper than their words ever could. The prairie offers no distraction from your own decline. Day after day, you ride through sameness. Brown earth, brown sky, brown dust, until time itself feels meaningless. You lose count of how many days have passed, how many nights you have coughed into the firelight. The horizon never seems closer, the herd never smaller, and your body never stronger. Each morning you rise weaker than the last, each mile stretches longer than the one before, and each cough tears more from your chest than you thought you had left. You ride because you must, because the herd must move, but the purpose grows thin. All you know is the dust, the thirst, and the constant ache in your lungs. One evening, after another day that feels no different from the rest, you collapse beside the fire, before the cook has even called for supper. Your limbs shake, your breath rattles, and your head feels full of smoke. A plate is pressed into your hands, beans swimming in grease, but the spoon trembles before it reaches your mouth. You force a bite, then another, but the food sticks in your throat and your stomach lurches. You cough into the plate until half the beans scatter into the dirt. The men glance at you, frown, and turn away. No one offers help. No one offers comfort. You are left to hunch over your rag, chest heaving, barely able to swallow another mouthful. The firelight offers no comfort after a day in the saddle. The air is already thick with dust from the herd, but the fire adds a harsher edge, sharp and bitter, the kind that scrapes your throat raw. Cowboys crouch close to the flames, shoulders hunched, faces orange in the shifting light. They mutter about horses, about fences back at the ranch, about nothing at all, the words drifting upward with the sparks. You lower yourself onto the ground with a groan, every joint aching, and draw your blanket tighter around your shoulders. The night promises rest, but you know it will never deliver. The herd moves even when it sleeps. Beyond the ring of light, you hear the constant shuffling of hooves, the low balls that roll like thunder across the dark. The sound never stops, as though reminding you that the cattle own the night just as much as the day. One of the men takes up his guitar, strumming a tune that is barely audible over the wind. The notes are uneven, fragile, but they cut through the silence, enough to keep the men from thinking too hard about the distance still ahead. You would close your eyes and let the sound carry you, but the smoke stings your chest and forces you into another coughing fit. It comes so suddenly that your ribs feel as if they might split, each spasm jerking your body forward until your forehead nearly hits the dirt. You cover your mouth with the rag, feel the wetness bloom across it, and hold it tight in your fist. No one comments. A few men shuffle away, inching closer to the opposite side of the fire. The night deepens, cold seeping in from the prairie. You stretch out near the fire, trying to chase the chill, but the smoke follows you no matter how you turn. Every breath draws in a new wave, and every wave ends in another cough. The others try to ignore you. One man mutters a curse under his breath and pulls his hat down lower over his eyes. Another spits into the dirt and shifts his bedroll farther away. You cannot blame them. Consumption is as feared as it is familiar, and no man wants to lie beside a body that shakes with fever. You press your blanket close, curl onto your side, and cough into the cloth until your ribs feel as though knives are pressing between them. Sleep comes in fragments, broken by fits of hacking and the shifting of the herd. Each time you close your eyes, you wake moments later to the sound of another cough tearing from your throat, or the rattle of hooves out in the dark. You lie there staring at the stars, their brilliance sharp and uncaring, until your vision blurs with fever tears. The prairie sky stretches wide, endless and cold, but you feel smaller beneath it each night, reduced to a body that cannot keep pace with the trail. Your chest burns, your skin sweats and chills in turns, and still the men snore beside you, as if your misery were no more important than the fire popping at the edge of camp. When dawn comes, it feels less like relief and more like punishment. The cook rattles his pans, calling men up for bitter coffee and beans reheated from the night before. You rise slowly, your joints stiff, your blanket damp from sweat and dew. The rag in your hand is stained, the dark patches unmistakable, even in weak morning light. You fold it quickly and shove it away before anyone notices. Mounting your horse takes more effort each day. Your legs tremble as you swing into the saddle, your head spins and the cough threatens to knock you down before you even ride out. But the herd is already moving, and there is no time for weakness. You ride because everyone else rides, because to be left behind is unthinkable. The evenings repeat themselves with cruel precision. Men gather around the fire, eat in silence, and then spread out into bedrolls, each finding whatever spot offers the least rocks beneath the ground. You join them, drawing closer to the fire for warmth, but suffering the smoke that seeps into every breath. Your cough grows worse as the night stretches on, rising in intensity until you can no longer muffle it with your rag. Each spasm leaves you gasping, your chest heaving as though it might burst. When you glance around the firelight, you notice the others have shifted farther still, leaving a small pocket of space where no one wants to settle. Their faces are blank, their eyes hard, but their actions say enough. You're becoming untouchable, a man set apart by disease. The pain grows sharper with each night. Your ribs stab when you cough, a hot needle-like pressure that forces you to double over again and again. You clutch your side as if holding yourself together, but the spasms keep coming, each one leaving you weaker. Sweat dampens your blanket, even as the cold prairie air bites at your skin. You shake, not from chill alone, but from fever that never leaves. The food you choke down at supper tastes of ash, your appetite fading until even beans seem too heavy to swallow. You force yourself to eat because you must, because a man who does not eat is a man who cannot ride, but every bite feels like a battle you cannot win. Some nights, when the coughing subsides long enough to let you breathe, you hear the whispers. Men speaking low, their voices just above the crackle of the fire. They do not name you directly, but you know their words. They talk about consumption, about men who wasted away on the trail, about graves dug shallow and left without markers. You lie still, pretending to sleep, listening as they weigh your place in the herd against the risk of carrying you farther. In the end, they never make a decision aloud. Silence settles again, broken only by the fire's hiss and your own ragged breaths. But you know the truth. They are already considering the day when you will no longer rise with the bell. Each morning begins with more dread. You wake to find your throat raw, your chest heavy, your body unwilling to move. Yet the sound of the cook's bell and the restless cattle force you upright. You stumble through breakfast, mount your horse with shaking legs, and ride out as though nothing is wrong. The trail demands repetition, and you obey it, coughing until your vision blurs, gripping the saddle horn until your knuckles ache. You no longer remember what it feels like to draw a clean breath. Every inhalation is a negotiation between dust, smoke, and blood. Then comes the morning when denial is no longer possible. You wake shivering, your body wrapped tight in the damp blanket, and reach for the rag at your side. It is stiff with blood, hardened into dark patches that crackle when you unfold it. Your hand trembles as you stare at it in the weak light of dawn. The fire burned down to embers beside you. The cough rises again, violent, tearing, and when it passes you slump forward, dizzy and hollow. You lift your eyes and see your horse already saddled, reins dangling, someone else having done the work you could not manage. The men move about camp as if nothing is unusual, their silence louder than any words they could speak. You clutch the stiffened rag in your hand, the blood plain as day, and realise that whatever strength carried you this far is slipping away. The herd waits, the trail stretches on, and you're already falling behind. By the time the herd finally reaches a railhead town, you are barely upright in the saddle. Each cough tears through you until your whole body quakes, and when you spit into the dirt, the colour is no longer hidden by dusk or firelight. The men ride on without comment, but one finally mutters that you ought to see a doctor before you fall dead in the street. You laugh weakly, though it sounds more like a rattle, and agree because you have no strength left to argue. When the herd is turned over and the cattle counted, you drift behind the others as they scatter toward the saloon. Their boots strike the boards of the main street, spurs jingling, already eager for whiskey. You stagger in the opposite direction, toward a small wooden building with a crudely painted sign that reads simply, "Physician." The door creaks as you push it open, and the air inside smells of carbolic, stale tobacco, and sickness. The doctor is a wiry man with a long moustache and sleeves rolled up to the elbows, as though he has been elbow deep in misery all day. His spectacles hang low on his nose, and he squints at you with the same impatience he might show a stubborn mule. You sink into a chair, chest heaving, and he wastes no time asking questions. He presses a hand to your forehead, frowns at the heat, then orders you to cough so he can listen. You do, and the sound fills the small room like the rattling of loose nails in a box. He nods unsurprised, as if he has heard the same noise a dozen times already that week. When you mention the blood, his face hardens. He does not call it tuberculosis, though the word hangs between you like smoke. He simply says, consumption, and begins his routine. The routine is worse than the diagnosis. He takes a bowl and a knife, assuring you that bad blood must be drained if the body is to heal. You sit while he binds your arm and pricks the vein, the crimson welling out into the basin until your vision swims. The irony is not lost on you. You are already coughing blood, and yet he insists on draining more, as if the problem were excess rather than absence. When he finally unties the bandage, you are paler than before, weaker, your hands trembling as you press them into your knees. He offers no sympathy, only nodding as though pleased with his own work. Then come the poultices, thick pastes of herbs and grease that he spreads across your chest until the smell of camphor stings your eyes. He wraps you tight in bandages, assuring you that this will draw the sickness out, though you feel nothing but the weight pressing down on your ribs. The worst are the tonics. He lines bottles along the table, each promising some miracle cure: laudanum for the pain, syrup of squills for the cough, cod liver oil for strength, and mixtures so dark you cannot guess what lies inside them. He pours a spoonful of one and forces it between your lips. The taste burns your throat, sweet and bitter all at once, leaving your stomach roiling. Another tonic follows, and another, until your tongue feels coated in syrup and your head spins. The doctor speaks of balancing humours, of strengthening the lungs, of fighting phlegm with spirits. You nod because you have no energy to argue, but you know in your bones that none of it will change what is happening inside you. The disease does not care for syrups or poultices, and every cough reminds you of that fact. Then comes the matter of payment. The doctor clears his throat and names his price, and you feel your stomach drop. The amount would empty a cowboy's wages for weeks, enough to buy new boots or keep you fed for a month. You argue weakly, but his face remains hard. Medicine costs money, he says, and healing is never free. You reach into your pocket, counting coins with shaking fingers, handing over what little you have left from the drive. He sweeps them away without comment, already writing down instructions for more syrups you will never be able to afford. The rage that sparks inside you is brief, smothered by exhaustion. You realize you're paying not for a cure, but for the right to pretend you sought one. When you leave his office, the sun outside blinds you, the light too sharp after the dim interior. Your legs tremble as you descend the steps, and you clutch the railing as though it were the horn of your saddle. The bottle of syrup weighs heavy in your pocket, glass clinking softly with each step. The men are still at the saloon, their laughter spilling into the street, their boots tapping in rhythm to some off-key piano. You do not join them. You shuffle past, your lungs rattling with each breath, your body wrapped in bandages that do nothing but remind you of how thin you have become. The town feels indifferent to your suffering. Wagons rattle by, children dart across the street, and women carry baskets from the store. Life continues as though you are not standing there, coughing into your rag, staggering under the weight of your own body. You lean against a post, sweat trickling down your back despite the evening chill, and try another spoonful of syrup. It burns your throat, sticky and hot, but the cough comes anyway, tearing up from your lungs until you double over. A woman hurries her child past you without looking back. The sound you make is familiar to everyone, and no one wants to be near it. You manage to stumble back toward the makeshift camp outside town, where the cowboys are gathering again. They glance at you briefly, eyes narrowing at the sight of bandages, then turn back to their drinking. Whatever cure you hope to find is already dismissed in their minds. To them, you are no healthier than when you rode in, only poorer. You sink onto your bedroll, the bottle clutched in your hand, and try to convince yourself that the doctor must know something you do not. Perhaps the bleeding, the poultices, the syrup will work in time. Perhaps you will wake tomorrow stronger, your cough softened, your lungs lighter. You cling to the hope because there is nothing else left to cling to. But as night falls and the fire burns low, you realize the truth. The fever still gnaws at you, sweat beads on your forehead, and your chest rattles with every breath. The syrup eases nothing. The bandages itch, the herbs reek, and your body feels more broken than before. You stare at the bottle in your hand, its liquid glinting in the firelight, and you know you paid for nothing more than a temporary illusion. Your wages are gone, your strength is fading, and the prairie stretches endlessly ahead. By the time you return to the ranch, you are no stronger than when you left. The men say little when you rejoin them, though their glances linger on the bandages still wrapped around your chest. You climb stiffly from the saddle, your body trembling with exhaustion, and try to pick up where you left off. The trouble is that your body no longer obeys the way it once did. Your arms, once lean with the strength of long days on horseback, now hang thin and weak at your sides. Your cheeks are hollowed, the skin stretched taut, and your belt must be pulled tighter just to hold your trousers in place. Every step you take feels heavier than the last, as though the prairie itself has decided to pull you down. Work continues, whether you can keep pace or not. The cattle need driving, the fences mending, the horses feeding, and the foreman's voice cuts through the dust without mercy. You lift a saddle onto a horse's back, and your arms quiver under its weight as though it were a stone block. When you carry a bucket of water, your legs shake before you reach the trough, and half the contents spill into the dirt. The men notice, though most say nothing. A few smirk, a few mutter under their breath, but all keep their distance. To them, you're less a fellow cowboy and more a shadow of one, something thinning by the day. The fever never leaves you now. It clings close, dampening your shirt until it sticks to your back, then chilling you when the wind shifts. Your skin feels clammy, even under the harsh sun, and when the air cools at night, the shivers shake your body until your teeth chatter. You cough through it all, each spasm tearing at your chest like claws. The rag you keep at your side is always damp, always stained, folded and refolded until it seems more red than cloth. You no longer bother to hide it as carefully as before. Everyone has seen enough to know what haunts you, and their silence is answer enough. The meals that once seemed barely sufficient now defeat you entirely. The beans lie heavy in your stomach, each spoonful swallowed with effort, and bread feels like stone on your tongue. The cook watches you with suspicion when you push food around your plate, rather than eat, but he says nothing. He has seen this before, and will see it again. You drink coffee instead, letting the bitter liquid scald your throat, but it offers only momentary relief. Soon after, the cough returns, harsher than before, and you double over while the others scrape their plates clean. Hunger gnaws at you, even as food repels you, and the result is the same. Each day you grow thinner, each week your body shrinks. The work that once wore you down now threatens to crush you. Carrying fence posts, dragging supplies, or even lifting a bridle feels like punishment rather than labour. When you bend, your head spins. When you rise, your breath comes shallow. The saddle horn becomes less a tool of control and more a crutch to keep you upright. The foreman shouts louder when he sees you falter, as though volume might make you stronger. His eyes narrow, his jaw tightens, but still he says nothing directly. Perhaps he knows words are wasted, or perhaps he simply doesn't care. You are useful as long as you stand, and when you cannot, you will be discarded like a broken tool. At night, you collapse onto your bunk, the stench of the bunkhouse even harder to bear now that sickness has dulled your senses. The smoke makes your eyes burn, the lice crawl more fiercely across your skin, and the coughing chorus drowns out any hope of rest. You add your voice to it, louder and longer than before, until your ribs feel as if they might splinter from within. Sweat soaks your blanket, and when you throw it aside, the cold rushes in, leaving you shivering. You lie there staring at the beams overhead, knowing that sleep will not come, knowing that even if it does, the cough will drag you awake again before long. You begin to wonder if rest is something your body will ever remember. The other cowboys no longer bother to mask their unease. They shift away from you at meals, leave space around you in the bunkhouse, and ride a few paces farther on the trail. They have not spoken the word outright, but the fear of it clings to them all the same. Consumption is not a sickness men want to share, even though half of them are already coughing into their own rags. They treat you as though your illness were sharper, stronger, more dangerous, and perhaps it is. You learn to live inside the quiet ring they leave around you, though the silence cuts as sharply as any word. The chores that remain within your reach shrink by the day. You sweep out stalls, though the dust sends you into fits that leave you gasping for air. You haul small buckets, rather than large ones, pretending that the work is sufficient. You lean against fence posts more often than you drive them, your body trembling with every attempt to hammer wire. Each small failure chips away at the illusion that you're still a cowboy, that you're still part of the life you chased. Instead, you feel yourself drifting towards something else, a body present but already half absent, a man alive but fading with each shallow breath. The fever dreams come more often now. You lie in your bunk or on your bedroll out on the range, slipping into uneasy sleep, only to wake drenched in sweat, coughing blood into your rag. The dreams are always the same, endless horizons, dust that fills your lungs until you cannot breathe, the sound of hooves fading into the distance as you fall behind. You wake to find that the dream has followed you into waking life. The horizon is still endless, the dust is still choking, and the men still move ahead without looking back. The line between sleep and day grows thinner, until both seem part of the same decline. Sometimes you catch your reflection in fragments, a piece of glass in the bunkhouse, the shimmer of water in a trough. Each glimpse is worse than the last. Your eyes are sunken, rimmed with darkness, your skin pale beneath the layers of sunburn. Your collarbone juts out sharply beneath your shirt, your ribs visible even through the loose fabric. The man staring back at you looks less like a cowboy and more like something already half buried, his face drawn and hollow, his eyes heavy with resignation. You avoid mirrors after that, but reflections have a way of finding you. The cough rules every part of your day now. It shakes you awake in the middle of the night. It stops you mid-step in the yard. It doubles you over in the saddle until your vision spins. Each spasm leaves you weaker than the last, and you wonder how much more your body can endure before it tears itself apart. The rag in your pocket is no longer just an accessory. It is your lifeline, your confessional, your proof of how far you have fallen. Each time you unfold it, the stains grow larger, darker, harder to ignore. You know that soon there will be no hiding it at all. Then one afternoon, you pause by a water trough to splash your face. The sun is hot, the air heavy, and your body trembles from the strain of even simple tasks. As you lean over the water, you catch your reflection in the rippling surface. For a moment, you do not recognize yourself. The ribs jut out beneath your shirt. Your skin is pale and sallow, and your eyes are ringed with shadows so deep they look painted on. The face staring back at you is not that of a cowboy, but of a corpse waiting to be claimed. You turn away quickly, but the image follows, clinging to your thoughts, like dust in your lungs. You return to the bunkhouse that evening and feel the shift before you even cross the threshold. The noise inside is different now, not louder or softer, but more careful, as if every voice has lowered itself without quite knowing why. You step through the door, coughing into your rag, and men look up from their meals, only to look away just as quickly. The benches are crowded, but a space remains open, one that no one chooses to fill. You slide into it, the gap surrounding you as noticeable as a brand on your skin. At supper, you notice the change most clearly. Once bowls and spoons passed from hand to hand, beans ladled out without thought of whose utensil had dipped before yours. Now, when the pot reaches you, the man holding it sets it down on the table rather than passing it directly. His hand lingers on the rim, waiting for you to take it so he does not have to touch your fingers. You scoop your portion in silence, aware of the eyes that watch, and then push the pot down the line, where it is taken without comment. Conversation resumes around you, but it is thinner, more cautious, as if every word must step lightly around your presence. In the bunkhouse at night, the coughs continue, but yours carries differently. When you hack into the darkness, men roll away, pulling their blankets tighter. You hear them mutter, sometimes curses, sometimes prayers, never directed at you, but clearly meant for you. The snoring that once filled the room becomes uneven, interrupted by long silences whenever you stir. They are listening, waiting, measuring the sound of your lungs against their own fears. You feel it in the way the room seems to tilt away from your corner, as though the disease might creep across the floorboards if they lie too near. During the day, the space around you grows even wider. At meals, men crowd one end of the table, leaving you to sit alone at the other, a plate of beans cooling in front of you. You chew slowly, your appetite fading anyway, and listen to the low murmur of talk that stops each time you glance up. The words resume only when you lower your eyes, their voices muffled but steady. You're present in the room but absent from their lives, a ghost seated among the living. You cough into your rag, the wet sound filling the silence, and the man nearest you shifts his stool farther away. No one meets your gaze. Work continues, but less of it falls to you. At first it is subtle. Tasks given to others while you're sent for smaller chores. Someone else saddles the horses while you sweep out the barn. Someone else carries fence posts while you coil rope that no one will use. You tell yourself it is a kindness, but the truth presses harder each day. They no longer trust you with the heavier labour, no longer expect you to pull your share. You walk through the yard with a shovel or a bucket, but the looks on their faces tell you that you're not part of the crew anymore. You are tolerated because the foreman has not yet ordered you gone, but you're not included. At night, you cough yourself raw, and the bunkhouse feels smaller with every fit. The men avoid sitting near you at the stove. Their cards played at a table you are not invited to join. Even the guitar, once strummed lazily into the darkness, grows silent when you settle too close. The circle of light and sound has shifted, and you are left outside it, listening as though through a wall. You lie on your cot with your rag pressed to your lips, tasting blood and salt, and stare at the ceiling where the shadows crawl. The voices blend together, laughter muted, words indistinct, until they fade into something you're no longer part of. The isolation deepens with small cruelties. A cup left unwashed because you used it. A blanket pulled tighter when you sit too near. A horse passed to another man when you approach. The reins withdrawn without explanation. No one says you are unwelcome, but every gesture tells you so. They do not want your sickness, and they do not want your presence. You are tolerated only as long as you are quiet, only as long as you keep your cough pressed into your rag and your distance from their lives. The bunkhouse is full, yet you are alone inside it. The foreman does not speak to you directly. His orders are shouted to the others, his eyes sliding past you as though you're invisible. When he does address you, It is with a short command, something small and menial, something that requires little strength. Sweep that out. Stack those tools. Never anything more. You nod, obey, and carry out the work with trembling hands, but you know that each order carries the weight of dismissal. The moment your body can do no more, the orders will stop altogether. You feel it coming, as surely as you feel the fever sweat on your back each morning. The silence becomes its own torment. Men talk around you, but never to you. You hear stories half told, jokes half shared, laughter that does not include your name. Even your cough becomes a kind of punctuation in their lives, a noise that interrupts but does not invite response. They glance at you when it comes, their faces hardening, then turn back to their talk. You are no longer part of the conversation, no longer part of the crew, no longer part of the living rhythm of the bunkhouse. You exist only in the margins, coughing in the corner while life carries on without you. One evening, you sit outside on the stoop, watching the last of the daylight fade, and listen to the voices inside. The door is open, the lamplight spilling out, but the sound carries differently now. They laugh and curse, their boots scraping the floor, the clatter of dishes loud in the small room. You sit apart, the air cooler, but no cleaner, coughing into your rag while the stars emerge above. For a moment you imagine standing, walking back in and joining them, but you know how the room will shift if you do. The conversation will drop, the laughter will fade, and the silence will settle until you leave again. So you remain where you are, alone with the night. The silence of the bunkhouse has already told you what you're worth. The men have drawn their distance, the foreman has narrowed your tasks, and the rag in your hand has grown heavier, with stains no one will name aloud. Still, morning comes as it always does, with the clanging of the bell and the restless stirring of cattle beyond the yard. You drag yourself upright, your body leaden, your chest burning with every breath. The fever that clung to you last night has not loosened its grip, and your legs tremble as you pull on your boots. You know before you step outside that you will not last, but habit pushes you onward. The yard smells of manure and dust, the air sharp with chill before the sun has climbed high. Horses shift and snort, stamping the ground as cowboys move quickly through their routines. Saddles are heaved onto backs, bridles tightened, reins gathered. You stand before your horse with the saddle in your hands and feel the weight as though it were iron. Your arms quiver before you can lift it halfway. The others work swiftly, already mounting, their movements practiced and sure. You grit your teeth, force your body to move, and somehow drag the saddle into place, though the effort leaves you doubled over, breathless. When you place your foot in the stirrup, your body refuses to obey. Your leg shakes, your vision swims, and the strength that once lifted you easily into the saddle seems to have been drained away. You try again, pulling with your arms, shoving with your leg, and this time you swing over, landing heavily in the seat. The effort leaves you gasping, your lungs crackling like paper under fire. The horse tosses its head at the weight of you, uneasy with your trembling, but you cling to the horn, forcing yourself upright. Around you, the others are already moving out, dust rising in their wake. You nudge your horse forward, though each movement feels borrowed, as if your body no longer belongs to you. The trail stretches ahead, brown and endless, the herd moving slowly under the watchful shouts of the men. You ride among them, swaying in the saddle, the fever twisting your thoughts into haze. The sun burns down, hot against your hat, but inside you shiver as though caught in winter wind. Your breath rattles with each exhale, a broken bellows wheezing under strain. When you cough, crimson flecks spray across your lips and soak into the rag you press against your mouth. The taste of iron never fades, coating your tongue until you gag. You wipe your face with the back of your hand and see the stain glistening in the light. No one says a word, though a few glance and quickly look away. The hours crawl, dust rises with every hoofbeat, choking the air until you can barely see the man riding ahead. The herd bawls, restless, their low cries vibrating through the earth and into your bones. You try to shout to help keep them in line, but your voice cracks into another cough, and the sound dies in your throat. Each spasm bends you forward in the saddle, your arms wrapped around your chest, as if to keep it from splitting apart. Your horse slows, sensing your weakness, until you press your heels feebly against its flanks, urging it onward. Every step feels like a mile. Your fever blurs the world into fragments. You see the herd shifting like shadows, the men shouting words you cannot follow, the horizon wavering in the heat. Sweat trickles down your back, soaking your shirt until it clings to your ribs. The chill follows just as quickly, leaving you shivering even under the sun. You lose track of time, of distance, of purpose. All that remains is the rattle in your lungs, the taste of blood, the ache in your bones. You ride not because you're part of the drive, but because falling feels worse than swaying in the saddle. By afternoon, you can barely hold the reins. Your hands slip, your arms too weak to guide the horse. The herd moves on without you, dust and sound rolling forward while you drift at the edge. The men glance your way but do not slow. Their work cannot pause for one body, not when thousands of hooves demand their attention. You are a shadow at their flank, tolerated but no longer included, riding on borrowed time. Each cough shakes you deeper, crimson froth staining your lips until you no longer bother to wipe it away. The rag is soaked, the cloth heavy and useless, and still the blood comes. As evening nears, the fever finally drives you beyond denial. The horizon tilts, your vision narrows, and your body sways in rhythm with the horse until the saddle horn is the only thing keeping you upright. You clutch it with both hands, your knuckles white, but your grip weakens with every spasm. The cough rises again, violent and merciless, and you feel the warm rush of blood spill past your lips. You gag, choke, and nearly topple forward. The horse stumbles at your sudden weight, and you know the moment has arrived. Your strength is gone. You slide sideways, the saddle no longer able to hold you. The ground rises up hard, knocking the air from your lungs. For a moment, you lie there, gasping, dust filling your mouth, the world a blur of hooves and voices. The sun is already sinking. The herd has slowed under the fading light, men whistling and shouting to press it toward a stopping place for the night. Your fall is more inconvenience than catastrophe. A few of the men swing down, drag you by the shoulders, and curse the delay. Your body is limp in their grip, every cough rattling through you as though your ribs were splintering. You are not asked if you can continue, not told you will ride again tomorrow. They already know the answer. Camp is set just beyond the trail, the herd pressed into a loose circle under the watch of mounted men. Fires are lit, beans ladled into pots, and the steady rhythm of life continues around you as if nothing has changed. The others string a canvas between wagon poles, a crude lean-to at the edge of camp. They lower you beneath it and drop a blanket across your chest, the smell of mildew clinging to the cloth. A water skin is left by your side, along with a lantern whose light wavers uncertainly in the evening wind. One man squats down long enough to tell you they will collect you on the way back. His eyes do not meet yours as he says it, because both of you know they will not. By the time they return, there will be no one to fetch. The words are spoken anyway, the only ritual of dismissal cowboys allow themselves. Then he stands, pulls the flap shut, and joins the others at the fire. Their voices drift faintly into the night, already turning to laughter, leaving you alone. The air beneath the canvas is heavy, trapping the heat of your fever until you feel suffocated. Sweat beads across your forehead, soaks the collar of your shirt, dampens the blanket that presses on you like lead. You cough into your rag until it is sodden, each spasm tearing your chest raw. Blood fills your mouth, hot and metallic, running between your fingers as you clutch the cloth. The smell of iron overpowers everything else, choking you as surely as the dust did on the trail. You try to swallow but gag, the effort leaving you gasping, your head spinning. The lantern's glow trembles across the canvas walls, painting shadows that bend and sway. Fever distorts them further, turning ordinary shapes into figures that lean close, watching with blank eyes. You blink and they vanish, leaving only the flicker of flame. Your body shakes beneath the blanket, sometimes with heat, sometimes with chill, never with relief. The rag slips from your hand once, twice, and each time you fumble it back, unwilling to let it go. The cloth is the only tether left, proof that you still resist the silence pressing against you. Outside, the campfire crackles, and the voices of the men carry faintly to your ears. They talk of the herd, of pay, of whiskey waiting at the railhead. One strums a guitar, the strings buzzing with a lazy tune. You hear spoons scrape against tin plates. Men laugh at a joke you cannot catch. Boots shift in the dirt. Life goes on a dozen yards from where you lie, and not one of them steps closer. Their circle is whole without you. The only sound you contribute is the ragged cough that bursts from your lungs, louder in your small shelter than in all the camp beyond. The fever keeps you awake as the night drags on. Your body burns, then chills, then burns again, the cycle endless. Your lungs seize in spasm after spasm, each weaker than the last but no less painful. The rag grows heavier with blood, and when you press it to your lips it squelches. You drop it at last, unable to hold it any longer, your hand trembling uselessly against your chest. The smell of mould from the blanket, the metallic tang of blood, the sour smoke drifting through the canvas. They mix together until you cannot separate them. The air is thick, unbreathable, but you drag it in anyway, desperate for each shallow gasp. Time stretches thin, breaking into fragments. You cannot tell how long you lie there, only that the lantern burns lower with every glance. Its light fades, sputtering as the oil dwindles, and shadows fill the corners until the canvas seems to fold in around you. You hear the herd shift, hooves striking earth, cattle lowing in restless waves. Cowboys whistle and mutter to settle them, the sound faint but steady. It is the rhythm of the trail, the sound of men and beasts moving on. You are no longer part of it. Loneliness presses harder than fever. No one comes to check. No hand touches your shoulder. No voice calls your name. You think of home, of streets or fields you left behind, but the memories blur until they dissolve. Faces slip from your mind, voices fade. You cannot summon anyone to your side, not even in thought. All that remains is the prairie, the canvas, the cough tearing you apart. You are alone even in memory. Your breath shorten, rattles echoing in the small space. Each inhale scrapes, each exhale shudders wet and shallow. The pauses grow longer, stretching until you fear the next will not come. Your chest rises weakly, falls, rises again. You clutch at the blanket, your hands clawing the fabric, but your strength is gone. Your arms slacken, your head rolls to one side, and the world narrows to the sound of your own breath. Then at last the breath does not return. The final exhale leaves you, wet and broken, your chest collapsing into stillness. Your hand falls open against the dirt, the rag already beyond your reach. The lantern burns a little longer, flickering faintly, its flame indifferent to the body lying beneath it. No one marks the moment. No one enters the tent. The herd shifts. The fire pops. The voices drift farther into night. You die beneath the canvas, your fever burning out into silence, your chest stilled forever. Morning comes, though you do not rise with it. The fire is burned down to ash, the herd is restless, and the men stir from their blankets, rubbing grit from their eyes. Someone remembers you under the canvas. They push aside the flap and find what they expected. Your chest is still. Your face turns slack, the rag dark and stiff where it lies in the dirt. There is no surprise, no cry of alarm, No hesitation. One of them mutters that you're gone, and the others nod. It is as brief as noting the weather. Death is no stranger on the trail, and consumption is too familiar to stir shock. They do not summon a preacher because there is none. They do not call for family because you have none here. They pull the canvas aside, lift your body by the arms and boots, and carry you a short distance from camp. The ground is hard, but they dig anyway, their shovels biting into prairie soil until a shallow hole opens. It is not deep, not enough to protect you from scavengers or weather, but more than the dirt you lay on last night. The morning sun rises higher as they lower you into the ground. Your body is limp, your clothes stiff with dried sweat and blood. They place you without gentleness, arms falling awkwardly against your ribs, head tilting to one side. There is no attempt to arrange you, no pause to smooth your features or close your eyes. The blanket that covered you in the night is thrown in as well, mildew and all, less to honour you than to spare them from touching your skin. The rag lies where it fell, too soaked to bother with. One man kicks dirt over it before shoveling the rest. The earth falls quickly. Clods strike your chest, scatter across your face, bury your hollow eyes. The sound is dull, rhythmic, a chorus of finality. No one speaks as they work. No one hums a tune or mutters a prayer. They shovel until the hole is level with the rest of the ground, then press it flat with their boots. To look at it afterward is to see nothing but dirt, indistinguishable from the surrounding prairie. No mound remains, no marker is set. The place where you are buried is as anonymous as the dust in the wind. The men do not linger. They brush the soil from their hands, wipe sweat from their brows, and return to camp. Breakfast is finished, coffee swallowed, horses saddled. Your absence is a silence too familiar to dwell on. They have lost others before, and will lose more again. Your name, spoken less and less in recent weeks, is not mentioned at all. You are already erased, not by cruelty, but by indifference. Cowboys do not carve songs for the weak. They do not waste words on men who could not endure the trail. The herd shifts impatiently, and the trail boss shouts for the men to mount. The cattle low, restless under the growing heat, their hooves drumming against the earth. The riders fall into place, forming the lines that will press the herd onward. Dust rises once more, curling above them, swallowing the horizon. Behind, the shallow patch of dirt where you lie waits for wind and rain to wear it smooth. Soon, no eye will notice the difference. The prairie does not keep graves. It takes everything and returns nothing. As they ride out, no one looks back. The men's voices rise again, barking orders, trading curses, calling to the herd. Their laughter returns as the day lengthens, brittle but alive. The trail consumes their attention, leaving no space for the memory of the man left beneath the dirt. Your cough fades from their ears, your weakness from their eyes, your presence from their thoughts. You have become another body, lost along the drive, one more tally in a list too long to count. The trail continues without you. The herd marches north, the men curse and laugh, the dust rises into the horizon. Your body lies still beneath the soil, cooling, breaking down, joining the earth that has always waited for you. The prairie swallows the memory, and no trace remains but the dust carried on the wind. And that brings us to the end of tonight's story. Not the image of cowboys as fearless riders beneath a wide, free sky, but the reality of young men coughing themselves to death in dust, fever, and silence. Feel free to like, subscribe, or leave a comment with another forgotten corner of history you'd like explored next. If you'd like early access to more of these quiet descents into forgotten history, ad-free audio of the episodes, or just want to support the show, there's a link to the Patreon in the description. If you're listening on a podcast app, a rating or review helps more people find their way to these stories. And special thanks to the supporters who make this show possible, including our chroniclers, Andrew S., and Rich Davis. Sleep well.